Sample question number 3. Your organization replaced static IP addressing with dynamic IP addressing during network maintenance. Afterward, multiple users began reporting connectivity issues. You run the ipconfig/all command on a Windows PC and see the following: IP version 4 address 169.254.68.239. You run the ipconfig/release and ipconfig/renew commands in an attempt to force the computer to request a new IP address, but the system retains the same address. Which of the following should you do next? A. Switch the computer to a wireless network. B. Replace the network cable. C. Check the DHCP server scope. Or D. Run the ipconfig/flush DNS command. Pause the video now so you can review the question and come up with the best answer, and we'll be back in a moment to show the correct answer. And the best answer listed here is C. Of the listed answers, at least, the thing you should do next is to check the DHCP server scope. The key to this question is in the results of the ipconfig/all command. If a computer gets an IP address starting with 169.254, then it means it has a self-assigned IP address. That's known as a link local address. And in Windows, it's called a PIPA, automatic private IP addressing. So this 169.254 means that this system cannot get an address from the DHCP server for whatever reason. In this case, it could very well be that the IP range is not big enough for all users on the network. We can guess at this because multiple users were affected after the change from static to DHCP addressing. Let's say we had 50 computers or 50 PCs and laptops and whatever else. And let's then further say that our range was 192.168.1.150 through 192.168.1.189. If that was the case, then we would be short by 10 IP addresses. That's just an example, and it can happen, especially in bigger environments. The DHCP scope would have to be increased in this case and reactivated so that all the users' computers can get IP addresses. Until then, the users won't be able to do much work because they're connected on this APIPA or link local IP network. So we've got to check that DHCP server scope. Let's show an example on a router here. We'll go down to DHCP. This is just a basic Soho router that has a built-in DHCP server, which is enabled right now. And you can see the range. The range is 192.168.41.100 through 192.168.41.199. So this DHCP server can hand out 100 addresses maximum, starting at .100 and ending at 199. After that, if we have more systems, they're not going to be able to obtain an IP address. And so we would need to increase that range further. And we might do that just by changing the number to something like this, or we might change the network number altogether and use a network number that has more IP addresses to start. Let's go over the incorrect answers. Answer A says, switch the computer to a wireless network. Well, the scenario doesn't actually say if the PC connects to a wired or a wireless network, but we can assume that being a PC, that you're working at here, that it most likely is wired to the network. But here's the thing. If the wired network was functioning properly before the maintenance, then we need to think further and bigger in this case. The same goes for the network cable. You would want to check that first anyway before replacing it. For example, is there a link light? Did Windows say that the network cable was unplugged? There was no indication in this scenario that the cable needed to be replaced. And finally, running the ipconfig/flush DNS command would remove any DNS entries, meaning host to IP resolution entries. It would remove those from the DNS cache. But DNS was not mentioned in the scenario and should not be the issue. That's because a system attempting to obtain an IP address from a DHCP server will use IP technology only, and it won't rely on any naming technologies such as DNS. That's not needed here. So there's no real reason to run the ipconfig/flush DNS command. And that closes out our last lesson. Great work. If you're interested in more practice questions, consider my A+ exam cram and my A+ practice questions book. And good luck on your exams.